So we saw recently Ethan Klein of the H3 podcast, and he announced he was deleting several episodes, 2 episodes he had with Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
I feel bad for the guy. A lot of people are mad. They're like, oh, that's a stupid thing to do and cancel culture and all that. And I'm like, dude, do you follow him and do you know why this is happening to him? By all means, criticize Ethan H3 for their politics. That's totally fine. And that's the political landscape. But what's happening is someone went on his YouTube channel from a really old video and they mass reported it. And he got a strike, which took his channel offline for a week. He has employees. He needs to make sure people are paying the bills. Now, I think his reaction to this was really, really bad. What he ends up doing is saying, I'm going to go back and delete past episodes, which can probably get me another strike. What people need to understand about YouTube and censorship and all that is that we've got Timcast IRL, where it is a variety of people, but includes me talking about news and politics. I have youtube.com/TimcastNews, which is me monologuing.
Right.
And then youtube.com/Timcast, which is me talking about big stories of the day. But they're so similar. I was told by YouTube that if I get one strike on any of these channels, even though they're different shows, I can't do any of the shows.
That doesn't make sense, because if someone on one of your shows, like a guest, does something that gets
you banned,
that doesn't make sense for you to have any kind of issues. I think you guys should revisit that.
Nope. That YouTube has outright said, we don't care.
Yeah,
so if the show is in any way related, when you get a strike, you're done. So you can't work for a week. And that means this is kind of, I mean, today we would just go on Rumble. We would say, okay, so this is what I was saying in a video. I talked about this with Ethan Klein. I said he should have went on Rumble and set up his podcast there and just said, here's why we're taking these episodes down. We'll upload them to Rumble so people can watch them. Instead, he went the political route. And I disagree with this. Ethan Klein has long been a comedic edgelord where he said offensive things, and that's why they're going after him. But the reason he's taking down these podcasts, in my opinion, with Jordan Peterson, is because they can go to a 3 or 4 year old video, get it flagged because YouTube changed the rules later on, and then his whole company gets shut down. So his response to all this was, I'm taking it all down. He's been losing subscribers for whatever reason. I don't know. I think this may be related to it because he did this thing with Hassan Piker, the left-wing streamer. They did his collaboration, and then he gained a bunch of subscribers and lost a ton of subscribers. I wonder if in his mind he's thinking, yo, I don't care about politics. I'm just a comedian guy, but they're going to destroy my business unless I bend the knee. His choice was to fall in line and bend the knee. I think it's a mistake, but I certainly understand his fear of censorship. Now, this is my speculation. I could be wrong. But why would someone go in and delete old shows? There's no reason to do that. Yeah. He nuked 8 million views off his channel. And in my opinion, it's because the culture war is escalating. The left and probably the right will go after his old videos. I'd be willing to bet there are people who are going to start flagging his content because he's announced he's doing left-wing content with his son.
And you could never appease the mob. So no matter how many times he apologizes, there's still clips of him saying some absolutely absurd stuff in the name of free speech that people are going to bring up and use against him. The strategic move that should have been done here is build your own platform, build up your own website, build up your own subscription model, have an alternative to YouTube, because all the writings were on the wall, even in 2008. I remember making videos in 2008 being like, hey, YouTube, it's not going to be a space that is going to be respecting free speech, and we're going to be seeing this platform restrict speech more as we go on. And of course, this is why I built my website, my email list, and even if they do take me down, fine. I have alternatives. I have other ways of even getting payments. There's ways that we have moved away from this big system, and I think YouTube recognizes that they're not the all and be all right now. That there's alternatives, and a lot of people are exploring those. I know you did, and it's been extremely strategic. It's been extremely smart, and I wish other people would just implement those same measures and not be into this control grid that we're all in.
You can't stop the internet. That's what it is. They're trying to. The establishment, desperate, and the elites, the billionaires, many of these ultra-wealthy individuals, they desperately want to be back in that world where there were 5 channels. They all marched in lockstep on all the news stories. They all backed up the government and the major corporations. They could easily snap their fingers and get us involved in a war and say Iraq like the New York Times did. And now it's difficult. Now, some random dude in a beanie screams at a camera for a few years and people watch the show, and how do they get rid of it? Well, they could outright ban it. They go after Steven Crowder. They give him a strike even though he's just citing the CDC. That's a really good example of how they'll lie, cheat, and steal. But there are limits. If they go too hard, then people revolt and they'll just make new platforms. Then the establishment is playing whack-a-mole, game of cat and mouse. They'll go after, Gab and accuse them of all this other, nonsense, try and get them banned, and then Gab builds their own infrastructure. Rumble emerges, gets massive institutional investment. These establishment political powers are losing, in my opinion. Free speech is winning. Gun rights are winning. And in that regard, I will say I'm fairly optimistic that authoritarianism will not be able to prevail because there's nothing they can do to silence us. They can shut down our Twitters, but then Getter pops up. Getter might get crushed, but then people will go to Gab. It's never going to stop. The internet exists, and they need to learn to deal with it.
I think that they're trying to instill a civil war, though, in the United States now. They've given up on trying to censor people into submission. Now they want to see the U.S. fight itself so that corporate governance can take hold.
I kind of disagree. I mean, we look at the latest statements made by the President of the United States. He was begging social media companies and the corporate media to start censoring, quote, misinformation, all in the name of keeping everyone safe. Dr. Fauci on the World Economic Forum also on his Zoom call was saying we need to fight disinformation for everyone's health. People are understanding what's going on here. The German government is even proposing on banning Telegram. I love Telegram. I have a lot of fun on Telegram. It's one of the platforms that has truly risen and has allowed people to talk to each other without any algorithms, without any central controllers, without anyone dictating what you can and cannot see. People are having real, honest, civil discussions. For the German government, that's a big no. We got to ban that. We can't allow the plebs to talk to each other. How dare they share ideas and have informed consent about the decisions that the plutocrats and billionaires make for them? Obviously, it's ridiculous to portray this concept that they're caring for us by limiting our speech. That's a ridiculous concept and a concept that has been used historically to oppress people, enslave them, and to murder them. That's the true lesson of history that we're learned here. So this is why they're still trying to censor speech, in my opinion.
Yeah, less that it's... I used to think that the goal was to censor the speech and be done with it. Now I'm starting to think the goal is to take control of the world's governance with a corporation, and then censoring the speech is a byproduct of that, or is a step on the way towards it.
I would argue that they already did it in some ways.
Did what?
Took over. The corporate overlords have taken over government and are using them as a tool, as a vehicle for their own...
Hands down.
Yeah.
Mark Zuckerberg knows when you poop. And it's a funny way to explain the concept, but the algorithms, the AI of Facebook knows when you will have a bowel movement. They know who you will vote for. They can then influence you. Facebook ran experiments on people without their knowledge to see if they could make them depressed. Fact check me on that one.
Yeah,
I could be wrong, but my understanding was they flooded people's feeds with negative information to see if they would get sad, and it worked.
Yeah, it was psychological experiments on unsuspecting Facebook users. I've been talking about this for a number of years now, and this is what they were doing openly, admittedly. Testing and manipulating people's emotions with the algorithm, seeing how they could change their emotional state. And if they're doing that with emotions a couple years ago, I think this was over 10 years ago, what do you think they're doing now on such a complex level with the algorithm only gaining and becoming more stronger? So if they can make you sad with the algorithm, imagine what else they could make you do if they tweak the algorithm in different ways.
They can make you find a wife. They can make you find your significant other, and it's the one that they want you to find. That's called eugenics.
Wow, dude, that's creepy, but it's true.
Yeah,
man.
if you look at everything the establishment pushes, it's pushing a system that de-incentivizes the family unit, that perverses people's own sexuality, that bastardizes any kind of semblance of love and respect and harmony for the fellow human being. If you look at every aspect of it, it's to destroy families and the future of this country.
Well, so going back to the Ethan Klein thing with Jordan Peterson, a lot of people on the left and the right made this about tribal politics. And so I decided to take a look. I was like, why would you delete 8 million views off your YouTube channel? I was like, even if he doesn't like Jordan Peterson, there's a lot of videos he should be deleting because the things he cited, he's got other videos of that stuff. So why just Jordan Peterson? So I went and looked at his YouTube stats and I looked at his chartable stats for his podcast. And then I saw that there was a period where he was getting hit and he was losing subs. Then I saw he posted on Instagram that people flagged his old videos and got his company shut down. And he said, I've got 10 employees. I've got to pay them. I owe rent. And they shut my company down. And I'm like, there it is. They have successfully coerced him into playing ball with tribal politics. I think it's a mistake. I think he should have stayed true to himself, and he would have been a hero of those he long stood for. But I want to throw it to you, Carey, because you worked for Anti-Media, and there was something that I think was missed by Project Veritas, And I could be getting the story wrong, so again, you should fact check me on this one. It's been several years. But I remember Veritas did this expose on, I think it was Pinterest. And there was this blacklist. Live Action was blacklisted. It's a pro-life organization. And Project Veritas pointed that out. When I was looking at their video, when I saw this report, it lists anti-media. And I saw that and I was like, whoa. I was like, James and Veritas, I think they missed it because they didn't know what it was.
Right.
Everyone has their biases, whether well-intentioned or not. And I think Veritas missed that. An anti-war, anti-establishment website was also being censored. So what happened with all that?
I actually didn't even know that Pinterest had censored us. I
think it was Pinterest. Sorry.
Okay, yeah. Well, I
could be wrong.
remember, and I could be wrong, but I think I remember seeing that Google had blacklisted us, which makes sense because we could never get accepted into Google News. We'd apply, and we couldn't get in, even though other independent media outlets could. This actually reminds me, because we were talking about gaslighting and the way the media operates, and it's so after the 2016 election, the Washington Post came out with an article about all the misinformation, and it was all spread by, Russia. Russia was behind it, and all these news outlets were spreading misinformation to benefit Russia. And we were put on a list made by an anonymous group. They were called Prop or Not. You can look up this article, search Washington Post. Prop
I was
or
on
Not.
there too. Yeah, We Are Change was on that list as well. And I was like, what? I'm a Russian asset?
Right. And
I'm Polish. Like, how dare you? Sorry, go ahead.
Well, but it's crazy though, because I worked for an organization called the Anti-Media. Like I had already broken ties with the mainstream media, and I came from the left. I was a pretty mainstream Democrat, voted for Obama, and so I went through quite an evolution away from that. But even then, seeing my name on that list from an authority figure, the Washington Post, I was like, wait, am I in some way supporting Russia? What have I done? And I'm like, this is driving me insane because I'm so actively, we wouldn't even quote RT unless it was like a Russian general. We were so careful about not being aligned with state or with governments, with state-sponsored media, with really being accurate. And it got in my head so much. And then, of course, I was angry because I was like, how are you gaslighting me this hard that I'm questioning my own integrity and my own practices when I know them better than any person at Prop or Not, any anonymous person? But it definitely, when the bans happened, it happened right after Alex Jones. So I don't know if you had a specific question, but it was...
No, just what happened.
Well, I think it's important to also understand you were deplatformed on many different social media organizations. Can you tell us how you were deplatformed, how you dealt with it, where you are now?
Yeah, so it's interesting because we actually had a Facebook representative working with our page. And this is back when Facebook was really big. It was still one of the major platforms. Nobody uses it anymore. Nobody I know, but I don't use it. But we had lost a lot of reach following the 2016 election. We used to have, at one point, I had the most viral article in the world, like based on metrics. So we were really getting reach. And it wasn't just us, it was our partner organizations, the Free Thought Project, it was the Mind Unleashed, and it was always anti-war, police accountability, anti-establishment, anti-cronyism. We talked about solutions. We talked about I'm sure, things that people care about. And then out of nowhere, let's see, Alex Jones was banned August 2018, and we were banned October 2018, right before the midterms. And we'll never be able to prove exactly why. We got a very generic notice of like inauthentic, no, that was Twitter. I can't keep track of all the places we were banned. Anti-media was banned on Facebook. I believe they said it was something about manipulative behavior. We didn't do any of that. We just posted our articles. We had partner pages. But regardless, that was in the morning. I think it was a Tuesday morning. We got that notice. And by the afternoon, Twitter had banned us as well. And my personal account was banned.
I think they're trying to homogenize the media narrative.
Yep.
And so there were too many voices. The ecosystem was expanding. It was expanding rapidly. And even right now, it's really difficult for people to get started on YouTube because they want to make sure there's a very narrow path you can walk.
Right.
Only if you have an acceptable voice.
The corporate ties. So if you're tied into major special interest in corporations, you're going to get pushed in the algorithm. You're a Joe Schmo. You have absolutely no chances of making it.
What they're doing right now is they've isolated, they've secretly, in my opinion, based on the data, quarantined channels like this one and many others. Now, I think we were quarantined for some time, but we had that lifted for some reason. I think, we are on the edge of what they find tolerable. And I've often explained it as a pressure release valve. If they ban too many people at once, everyone just jumps ship and goes somewhere else. But if they want to control people's thoughts, what they'll do is they'll ban some and then make sure channels like this one remain so that people won't leave the platform and they can keep feeding them a narrative. So I've talked about this in terms of effective censorship versus what a lot of these companies had been doing, saying that if you give people clear rules and understanding, they'll follow it. But if you ban them outright, you make them jump ship to other platforms where they maintain and push and double down. I think that's what they're doing. I think the reason, so we were blacklisted for a while. This channel, you couldn't Google search it. You type in the name and you'd get Facebook instead of YouTube. You would type in YouTube and try, and none of it would come up. That changed, I think, at some point last year, and it was funny. We mentioned on the show. Then the next day, everyone's like, "Hey, you're not blacklisted anymore," and I'm like, "Interesting."
It was the first night I mentioned DMT.
All of a sudden, they were like,
"Not true, by the way." But that's what I like to think.
The machine elves set us free.
I talked about psychedelics, but they were like legit.
To put it simply, I think the reason Anti-Media gets banned, the reason why Alex Jones gets banned, the reason why they're going after Crowder, is because they have the road they've paved, and if you walk off of it, you're out.
What gets me is that you got banned on Facebook, and then later in that same day on Twitter. So that makes me think that it wasn't someone at Facebook called someone at Twitter and was like, "Hey," that it was somebody above both organizations was like, "It's time."
Right.
That's what it makes it seem like, but that's
the thing is,
conspiracy
I
theory.
can't claim anything with certainty, and I'm not going to because I don't know. But they had started working with the Atlantic Council. I think it's called the Digital Forensics Research Lab, and they were supposed to be analyzing social media and helping platforms like Facebook and Twitter weed out anything that could threaten democracy and hurt the integrity of elections.
And that council was connected with Henry Kissinger, who, of course, is also a very big fan favorite of We Are Change when we were conducting interviews of him. And obviously, that didn't play a role in us getting hit on the Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and all that other stuff. Last year, by the way, the Facebook page that I run on We Are Change got a strike because we posted a screenshot of the CDC website talking about breakthrough cases. Louder Crowder got hit for mentioning CDC statistics. So it's not even just walking the tightrope. Even if you regurgitate the narrative back at them, they still have the indecency to try to destroy your livelihood, take away everything you worked so hard for, all in a moment's notice because you're not helping the multinational corporations. You're not helping the special interest. You're not helping the billionaires class. You're not helping Henry Kissinger, Bill Gates, and all these other people push their agenda onto everyone else. So it's becoming sick and twisted to such a degree that you can't even talk about the official story anymore.
Well, and it's so telling too, because the things we care about, the things that we covered, war, empire, police brutality, mass surveillance, these are things that to many people on the left who are principled, this is not taboo to discuss. We're not talking about things that are out. We weren't noticeably right-wing in any way. So all I'm left to believe is that whoever made these decisions didn't like the lens we were framing it in. It wasn't that we were anti-war. It wasn't that we were against the empire. It was that we were framing it through an anarchist lens that was completely outside the realm of political solutions, like voting or something that people would consider acceptable. We were advocating an overhaul of the entire thing. And I'm left to, again, I can't say with any kind of certainty, but it seems like that was the issue.
I want to address one of the super chats before we move on to the next segment. Normally we would just save it to the end, but people have pointed out that Ethan Klein has very, very offensive shows where he makes, racial slurs and he says things like that and homophobic slurs.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. I know. And I don't think that changes my point. I think my point is him getting rid of the Jordan Peterson episode is because he's scared of the left going after him and getting him banned. So he's siding with them in hopes that it protects him and they won't go after him.
The metaphor again is like if a doctor is like, "Hey, you have an infection, we're cutting it off," and you're like, and then you start looking around at your body, you're like, "That might be an infection. That looks like an infection. I'm cutting it off." He cuts that off. That might be an infection. Then everywhere he looks, he starts to see potential infection. So he's cutting his own videos off.
You're missing what I just said. He has a video on his channel, someone mentioned, where he says racial slurs over and over and over again. He hasn't deleted it. It's not an issue of him saying, "I've done something wrong." It's an issue of him saying, and this proves my point, it's not about him agreeing with the left. It's not about him actually disagreeing with Jordan Peterson. It's about him saying, this is what will get me banned if leftists flag my videos. They're not going to go after his iDubbbz thing. They don't care about iDubbbz. That's what they're mentioning. iDubbbz is the interview. They're going to go after Jordan Peterson, which will get him in trouble. So I think whether he wants to acknowledge it or not, I think this plays a big role in his political shift. He's scared of getting canceled. He's siding with them in hopes they don't flag his content.
But you're saying he has homophobic content he's not deleting?
So I wouldn't call it homophobic. I would say that he's intentionally being offensive as possible by saying a racial and homophobic slur together over and over again, and he hasn't done it.
I would think that would be the first thing he would want to delete if he's concerned about people on the left coming after him.
Not if he sides with them. You see?
Oh, okay.
Are they going to go after a YouTuber? No. Are they going to go after Jordan Peterson? Yes. So he starts agreeing with them, He starts defending them. He starts saying, this seems safe and acceptable.
Right.
They're not going to flag my content, but they would flag Jordan Peterson. I'm not saying he's the smartest guy in the world. I'm not saying he's perfect. And there's another comment where they're saying, I'm just defending him. I'm like, dude, first and foremost, I don't agree with his politics. That's fine. Criticize the guy all day and night. I'm pointing out, there are people, like this is a guy who was just an edgy comedian. What does he know about politics? He's even said he doesn't know. And now he's getting inundated with attacks. So he decides to stay safe, to survive at all costs. Like, who mentioned this? Was it the other day they mentioned the Gulag Archipelago?
Yeah.
It's James.
James?
Yeah, James O'Keefe.
Right. He was mentioning survival at all costs.
I think so,
That's
yeah.
what this is. And it's strategic. If he really cared about what the left was saying, if he really believed it, he would have deleted that episode. He didn't. Which says to me, it is his fear of the culture war.
I got more that he wanted to do a high-profile takedown of Jordan Peterson for views. That was my...
But he didn't make a video about it.
He just tweeted.
I mean, I'm
about
sure
it.
he talked about it on his new channel, but I don't think he's even done a full podcast.
Yeah, you're right.
episode.
There's more to it. Yeah.
But
he
also
would've made a big deal out of it.
everyone's talking about him now, which also achieved the goal of getting attention for this, which could have been something that he was seeking potentially.
And if he removed a bunch at once,
marketing.
it wouldn't be. Now he can remove a video every 2 weeks and stay in the limelight. Nice job, Ethan. Come on, dude.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to watch live, you can check out this channel Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Now, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and if you want more unfiltered and uncensored content with all of these guests, go to timcast.com and become a member. All of these guests you know and love in exclusive segments on our website where we are unrestricted in what we talk about, so you'll definitely not want to miss it. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all next time.